Hello again. So Dundee United have lost their second final in less than a week. Denis, they must be absolutely shattered.
Oh, very. I mean, in a final, when you look at the losing team, and you always feel very disappointed for them. But tonight, it looks as though they had too many games under their belt. What was it, their 66th game? They played very tiredly. And it was only a little spell in the second half for about 10 minutes that the sort of fire was there. They got the goal. Then you felt, well, maybe they could get a second. But that only lasted, you know, for about 5 minutes.
I still don't understand it. You say it's their 66th game or whatever, but surely a game like that, a final of that stature, you don't feel tired, do you?
Well, you shouldn't do, should you? It is the final. And of course, the crowd, you know, should give you that bit of a boost as well. But then they lost, not an early goal, as John Clark said, but a goal after 22 minutes. That really sort of knocked us off him. But then you need people inside. You need your captain. You need your other people to say, now, listen, it is the end of the season. It is the final. Let's get going. If we're going to get beat, we're not going to let them walk off the park.
At the start of the second half, they seemed half asleep. I mean, the Swedes could have scored very early on.
Well, you know, I don't know how they feel, personally. I mean, I know if it was me and Jimmy playing, of course, well, we would go out there to do our best. And you're in the final. I just don't know. I mean, it all depends what the manager said. But there was a spell, wasn't there?
Look, just look at this now. Early on in the second half.
That was in the first sort of 2 or 3 minutes of the second half. And you feel, well, really, you know, it is a final. That shouldn't be, because the guy could have actually scored himself, couldn't he? And, or he could have squared it to one of the other Gothenburg players who was sort of, what, 5 yards out. Then that really would have killed the game.
Jim, what do you think went wrong?
I don't think anything went wrong. I think they just gave themselves a bit too much to do, Nick. The goal away from home killed them. Because let's remember one thing. They're playing against a very good side tonight. I think this side are as good as any in Europe. I know Denis doesn't quite agree with that, but when you think that they nearly won the European Cup last year, were very unfortunately knocked out by Barcelona. They've gone in this tournament 25 games, Martin says, without defeat. They're no mugs. And I think that they played a good side. They went a goal down, and it was an uphill task, and the hill was too high for them. It was as simple as that.
Let's hear what you have to say about the goal, the Dundee United goal, which in itself was a belter, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was very well taken goal, actually, and this was at a time when they did actually start to push forward and look as though that they were going to do something. He turns it well, Clarky, doesn't he? He really does turn him well, and it's a great shot. In off that post again, and you can't argue with it. It was a lovely turn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they had, as Denis rightly said, that 15-minute spell where they did put the pressure on, but it was always going to be, I felt, very difficult for them. They had to score 2 goals, and professional footballers are not idiots, Dick. Contrary to the rumour. You know, they know what they've got to do, and they recognise when a task is very, very difficult, and that they need a few miracles at the same time.
So you're saying sort of midway through the first half they knew they were done for then?
I'm not saying they knew that they were done for. They knew the complexity and how mammoth their task was going to be, and they were realistic about it. They gave it a go. But unfortunately, they were playing against a very good side.
Denis, let's see John Clark again going close this time with a header. Well, perhaps we won't for the moment see that. But anyway, I mean, there was that spell of about 10 or 15 minutes, wasn't it?
There was,
when they really played with fire in the old belly.
Well, they should. I mean, I disagree with Juve to a certain extent. That it is a final. I don't care how, in a way, you know, if they are the better team. It was a spell when Dundee United came back into a game. In fact, that sort of clash there. I think if there had been a shout of confidence, you know, he might have left it to the other player there. I can't remember just who exactly it was. But he was coming in with a better chance of a header, chance than to direct a header. Of course, he just topped it over.
I didn't say IFK were a better team. I said that they are a very good team. I mean,
but, you know, I mean, it is the final. It is the final.
Exactly,
you know, and therefore, it's like blood and thunder. You know, I don't care if you're going to get beat. You've got to have something. And there was a spell in Dundee United's side tonight that didn't show that at all, did it? Now, you're playing in a final, Greaves. You've worked all around Europe. You've done your semi-finals. You're really looking forward to it. You've got to give everything you've got.
That's right.
If it's there.
If it's there. If it's there.
You didn't look too happy.
But then again, you see, the other side is still in exactly the same situation, and they're a goal up, aren't they?
Well, once they've
got that cushion at the same time.
Can I interrupt you there for just a moment?
Don't interrupt us, Nick.
We want to hear from Alex Ferguson, who's actually at Tannadice right now with Ian Archer.
Alec Ferguson, that must have been as big a disappointment to you as I suspect anybody here in the ground.
Oh, I mean, all the evidence is there. Asking players to peak 3 times in the one season, the 1 week, like Dundee United had to do tonight. Very, very difficult. And that, I mean, what you've got to say about them is they've done magnificent for Scottish football. Up until 7 crazy days, you know, where the legs went, really. And I honestly believe if they hadn't, they're only going for 1, they would have won it. They're going for the 2. There's so many games in the season, tells its tale, really, Ian.
That's right, because they didn't play well at Hampden Park on Saturday, didn't play well here tonight, and it just looked a case of tired legs. Yeah, tired legs, and also trying to motivate a team for finals. You know, with the Scottish Cup final wedged in between the UEFA Cup finals, the 2 legs, I think it's an impossible task, honestly. I experienced at Aberdeen when we won the European Cup Winners' Cup in '83, and asking to repeat 10 days later in the Cup final, impossible. Thank you very much, Alec Ferguson.
Thank you.
Well, the fairy tales may have stopped with Coventry City and St Mirren at Dundee United's expense, nevertheless, last weekend. But Jim McLean has deserved the applause that he's got coming out. The fans have stayed on here at Tannadice, and all the players have come out to take an extra bow, as they're entitled to do, even in defeat. Jim McLean, over 15 years, has pulled this club up from nothing.
Say it in words.
And Ian Archer down there trying to get a little comment from him, but he's obviously a very disappointed man.
But the players really, at the end of the day tonight, gave everything they had. And to be completely honest, we were against too good a side for what we had left from after a hard season. The players have been magnificent, but these are the people we've let down.
Do you think after the first goal there was no way back?
I always hope, but beyond any shadow of doubt, we were struggling with what was necessary. The wee bit extra sharpness, the wee bit extra stamina. We honestly didn't have it. The players were honest tonight, but at the end of the day, the other side, over the 2 games, was just a wee bit too good for what we had left. I would love to play them when we were just after the start of the season and they were finishing the season.
But there's hardly a soul left Tannadice, so they obviously think the world of you still.
Yeah, well, I think they should. The players have been magnificent, but it honestly still wasn't good enough to win a trophy. That's the disappointment for us.
Thank you.
So they're still keeping their chins up in the crowd there at Tannadice anyway. Fabulous scenes there, particularly for the Swedes. Disappointment, of course, for Dundee United. Well, there's been plenty more European action over the last few days to talk about. Here now is Elton Wellesby.
Well, just 1 or 2 issues first, Nick. Mick McCarthy, the Manchester City and Republic of Ireland centre-half, has joined Celtic for £500,000. Arsenal's Charlie Nicholas is still a target for his old club. Nicholas says he'll decide on his future after the forthcoming internationals. Dave Bassett will cost Watford £150,000 compensation if he's to become their new manager. That's what his former club, or his present club, Wimbledon, whichever way you look at it, say they are still demanding. And John Bond's fate at Birmingham will be determined next week. Tonight's board meeting was adjourned. Well, apart from the home countries and in Italy, the league seasons all over Europe have reached that critical stage where everything depends on the last few games. Let's take a look at Spain. The 2 main contenders there, not surprisingly, Real Madrid and Barcelona. Real Madrid finished off the season as league leaders, but it's a 6-club playoff to determine the champions, who plays in the European Cup and 2 of the UEFA Cup positions as well. This penalty by Sanchez putting them 1 up. Hugo Sanchez, the Mexican World Cup star, who's had a prolific season for Real, then got number 2, his 29th of the season. Butragueno's cross, Sanchez with his customary victory roll. But then Espanyol started to make a fight of it. They're the 2nd club in Barcelona. Not quite sure what happened there. Piqui Alonso scored to make it 2-1. In fact, he used to play for Barcelona. Then Zuniga 3 minutes later equalised, and a well-taken goal it was too. But Real came back strongly. Butragueno, the vulture, providing the pickings for Michel to strike the winner a minute into injury time. A day later, Barcelona really had to win at Zaragoza to prevent Real opening up a sizable lead. Gary Lineker it was who put them in front after 56 minutes. And actually, if we take a closer look from a different angle, you can see how well Lineker used what little space he had. But the ball did deflect off the marker. No question, though, Lineker's goal. 15 minutes later, Zaragoza equalised. Majias' flick on, Pineda's goal. At 6 minutes from time, the travelling Catalan supporters were stunned by a fine goal by Senor, who's building a reputation for scoring crucial and spectacular goals. That one, a devastating blow for Barcelona. Well, there's the top six, with Real Madrid 4 points clear of Barcelona, and there are 5 playoff matches left. Espanyol and Zaragoza have only a slim chance. And this weekend, it's Barcelona against Real Madrid in the Nou Camp Stadium. You'll be able to see highlights next week in Midweek Sports Special. Well, now to Holland, and while Ajax are winning the European Cup Winners' Cup last week, PSV Eindhoven took over at the top. PSV at home to 4th place Roda, and that's Ruud Gullit, who's costing AC Milan £5.5 million at the end of the season, looking like Yannick Noah when he won the French Open a couple of years ago. Well, Gullit caused Roda all sorts of trouble, but it was the Belgian international Eric Gerrits who turned pinball wizard for the first goal. They say the entertainment level in Dutch football is almost as high as it was in the early 70s. On this evidence, one wouldn't argue. Gullit once again heavily involved. He really does resemble Mario Kempes in style. But in the end, he was presented with his 17th of the season on a plate. Finally, it was a superb effort by Van der Heep, another Dutch international, and PSV's leading scorer this season with 18, accelerating into space and planting a fine shot into the corner. Ajax at home in the big derby with Feyenoord, having paraded the Cup Winners' Cup before the match, found themselves a goal down in 7 minutes. Hofmann's goal set up by the former Ajax man, Taha Mata. Ajax in a similar position to Barcelona. Points behind and games running out. Well, they suffered a further blow when Feyenoord made it 2-0. Hofmann with his second of the match and almost an hour gone. Ajax certainly had their injury problems with 4 players out, including Arnold Muren. But whilst Marco van Basten's around, they're still in with a chance. Van Basten's hard work earned the penalty. He scored it himself. He also got the winner, you might remember, against Lokomotiv Leipzig in the Cup Winners' Cup, and joins up with Ruud Gullit at AC Milan next season. But Feyenoord had the last word. Bain's free kick catching the post, and the goalkeeper Menzo half asleep. So the Dutch League, PSV 4 points clear with 3 games.